Welcome to Daring To, a podcast that finds out how CEOs and entrepreneurs navigate today's business world. The conventions they're breaking, the challenges they faced, and the decisions that they've made. And lastly, just what makes them different. Hi, I'm Rita Trahan and I'm on Daring To, joined today by Pat Hurston, Corporate Development Director for Leadercast, an organisation that's all about developing leaders that people want to follow. Pat, it's great to have you here.
Oh, Rita, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here, and I definitely enjoyed our conversation over the past few weeks.
Well, I have tons of questions to ask you.
Super.
And I think our listeners are going to be really intrigued about you and what you have to offer. So I've kind of looked back a little bit over your career. Well, I think they're going to find it really interesting. So there's a couple of things that struck me. You know, here you are, a woman of the corporate world that worked there for a number of years and then decided to sort of really give herself to the non-profit world. That's sort of like very interesting within itself. But there's also a theme that seems to run throughout your whole career and your whole life, which has two things to it: women and young girls. Well, three maybe. So talk a little bit about that, because I'm really intrigued. It's that the fact that theme is constant throughout your life, it seems. Is that so?
Oh, it is. And what a privilege. I have had a wonderful career. I'm not going to say that it's always been rosy, but I'm so grateful for the journey that I took. And the one thing that even way back in high school, I've always wanted to help people. And that really is the theme. And it's not just helping people, but it's getting things done is important to me. And so when I was coming up, I didn't see a lot of people who looked like me. And I always wanted to be a businesswoman. I didn't know what that meant even. And so I got into the business world, went to school and all those, didn't do anything traditionally because I went to school and worked at the same time. So I was a learner and doer all at the same time. And I would watch people. And one of the things I saw is, again, I didn't see people who really had the notion of, let me help mold this person. Let me tell you what's about to happen or what could happen. And so when I started to be in corporate and I could see the people who were being successful, I started to think, if others could know what it took, how awesome and how quickly they could move up. So my passion, even when I was in corporate and I had a wonderful career, was always serving on nonprofit boards, trying to do things for the underserved communities. And then particularly women, because I feel like if you help women, you help the world. And so it was important to me that we help women and then young women, because I see these young people today, they are brilliant. They know all kinds of things, but how is it? What role can you take? What is it? I was struck by that. I was at my church one Sunday and the girl was graduating from high school, and I said to her, "What college are you going to?" And she looked at me like, "College? What is that?" And that took me on that journey to say, I'm going to help as many young people as I can to understand that you must get an education, that high school isn't the end, particularly again in our underserved communities and just people who don't know. How do we break that cycle to let people know it is expected that you're going to go ahead and get more education?
So that's really interesting. Let's talk about the underserved community, because we talk a lot about women in business and in education and in areas of professions that typically women don't do. I mean, you started out in the business world several years ago, like myself, when it was pretty tough then.
Yes.
I think it's still pretty tough now,
Yes.
but we talk a lot about it, but we don't often talk about the underserved areas and underserved communities that don't even think about the idea of going to college. And yet that's such an important population. You talked about the brilliance of young children. I heard you speak about that recently and saying, you know, that's an untapped community and they are so brilliant and they're so smart. And if I can get them off the streets and not be in gangs and just show them how they can use their skills, that would be so important. Why aren't enough organizations investing in helping underserved communities?
I just think that it is something that we're going to talk about a little bit more, and that is that being bold and really going out and reaching them. Let me just tell you something. When I started out in my career being, I think I was a receptionist in a bank. As I tell people, we were poor, but we didn't know we were poor. And so all I knew is that I wanted to get a job because I wanted to make money because I love shoes. That's all I wanted to do. And then I got in there and I said, oh, wow, this could be a career. I didn't even know. Nobody was talking to me about, I tell people all the time, I graduated from the University of Detroit, but let me say to you that for years we would ride down the street and we would see this big university. We didn't know what that was. And you would have told me that I would end up going to that college because nobody was talking to us about that. I think that we need to be talking to these young people about it and letting them understand the art of the possible.
So you're also being very modest because you actually have the Hall of Fame at your university.
Well, okay, right? I didn't want to go there.
Let's call it out because that in itself is, a massive recognition that you are actually putting on an event. Leadercast is actually putting on an event, which is all about being courageous and it's focused on women. So talk about that because I guess that's what you're really trying to get across. And is that the population that you're trying to get out there to spread the message around how important that is?
Yeah, we see in corporate America, and again, I was courageous, but didn't know I was being courageous. I know that a lot of times I was the first, the only, and all that stuff. Didn't want to be, but I will tell you that I was always standing on the side of what's right. And so when I saw something that was not right, just because we learn, the golden rule, do unto others as you want them to do unto you. And so when I would see things and I was just that naive, I'd go like, well, hold on now. That's not the way it's supposed to, to be. And that's not right. And so it was calling things out. I didn't know I was being courageous at the time. I was just trying to make sure people were treated fairly. And so what's important now is that it has, from when I started in corporate America to what it is now, it's so much more complicated technology and all those kinds of things. One of the things in working with young people in the technology field, we have found that the women are generally much more competent than their counterpart males, but they don't have the confidence. And when God made me, he gave me an extra portion of confidence. I could give it to some people, and so I had that confidence, and we want to teach women that is okay. And the women we're bringing to Leadercast women on October 18th at the Cobb Energy Center there are 9 of them. They have some fantastic stories. They're coming from a wide diversity of backgrounds and have some incredible stories. And how is it that we can get people to be courageous, young women in general? It's by telling the story. Oh, I can do that. Because again, it's the art of the possible. What can I do? If I put my mind to it, I really can do this. It's really okay. What's also important is that other women are supporting those women. When we take a bold move, we need to know that we got some sisters behind us that are going to help us as we go forward to really call out what's not right. And let's be fair about things. And so we need to bring these young women in general together so that they can hear about others' story and know that they can do it too.
So let's talk about that. Women sort of supporting other women. Right. Statistics tell us that when you ask women how they've got to where they've got to, it's often not because their female counterpart has played a big part in that. So it kind of says that we're actually not necessarily supporting each other in the way that we should, that actually many of them will recount men within organizations that have helped foster their careers and help them to climb up the ladder and be who they are, confident women, making a difference, making a contribution and moving forward. What is it about us women? What's our problem?
I think sometimes women feel like if I help you, what's it going to do for me? Or if the man sees me helping you, I can't really explain it because I'm not that smart. I just know that it's the right thing to do to help somebody. I feel like if I help you rise, you're going to help me. Is that you're going to, and in fact, what is the saying? Each one teach one, each one reach one. I really feel that if we just take all of the being fearful of what other people are going to say and just band together to help women, I think we're going to be better off. We have to, because women now are dominating the workforce. If we don't help each other, then you're not going to have a good staff because the staff is women. that is dominating. And so I think that I'm beginning to see with organizations that are being formed that women are being supportive. There are a number of women, particularly here in Atlanta, that I have run into, and having worked with women in technology and some other organizations, I have seen women by the thousands who will raise their hand and say, I will help. And they will help these young girls, which is extremely important. We have some of the best universities here in the state of Georgia. And when I have gone around to those universities, I have hope. I have a lot of hope. And they absolutely, I tell all women out there, if you're in corporate America, these young girls are watching you. There's somebody watching you. When I was coming up, there were one or two women who I would watch, and I would emulate what they're doing. Know that you can make a difference if you just take the time to talk to these women and try to help them say, oh, well, you don't want to do that because when this is what is likely to happen, or go this way, give advice, because it's all going to come back around and help you. So I think that while there is some of that, I am seeing that there is a lot more that people are being conscious that we got to help each other.
I agree with that. And I also see that much more so within the younger generation, that they are really stepping forward to make a difference for their fellow colleagues. Now, clearly you were ahead of your time in that thinking because you've been doing this for a long, long time. And so I want to talk.
Not that old.
Well, no, I mean, like neither am I, but I was going to get there with a long, long time for me means like a few years.
Yeah,
right?
right.
We're both there, right? So let's just call that out.
You're right.
But I want to talk about a topic that, you know, often we don't talk about because people get uncomfortable about it. They kind of like, you know, go, oh, let's not talk about that. It's a bit controversial. Let's just keep on the nice stuff. Well, you know, this is about daring too. You're a person that dares to make a difference. So we're going to talk about a topic that both you and I can relate to. We are both women of colour, and women in colour that have had big roles in the corporate world. Now, I don't know about you, but I know that it has its challenges and its obstacles, and we still see that today. Would you share some of your experiences around that?
Absolutely. Let me just start by saying the women that are in big roles today that I have met, they are doing a fantastic job, and they're handling it far better than I did when I was there, because again, I'm one of these naive, well, we all want to do the right thing, don't we? And so it never occurred to me that people would be looking at me because of my color or because of my gender. It is, you began to see that when you get into the room. Well, the first thing you're going to notice is you're the only person, a woman, in there. Then you start to see a person of color. Well, it could make you nervous. And you've got to make sure that when you speak, that they are listening, because you got something to say and bring to the table. The first thing women of color have to deal with is, okay, I got this layer of them, I'm a woman. Okay, I got to get through that. I got another layer, I'm a person of color. And now we're even sometimes thinking, what are the biases of the people around this table? Are they going to take me seriously? What are they going to do? I always believe that your work, first of all, if you got to the table, you did something right. And I believe that your work is always going to speak for yourself. Do you have to call people out? Absolutely. You have to sometimes do that. Okay. Well, John, when you said this, you may not have been aware, but this is how it came off for me. And you probably don't want to repeat that. I've had so many teachable moments, I can't even tell you. But I feel that it's not so much an extra burden as much as it is that I'm going to carry myself in the fashion of which the people will understand that all I come to the table with is I want respect. And I got something to bring, and I want us to work together. And so I think that when we are able to go through that and get to that, then after a while, it doesn't matter. And same thing happening for all the teams that I have led. You know, people was thinking about it first, but when you start to working together, all that goes out the window.
I think that's really helpful advice for women in general, actually, not just women in colour, because actually women face a lot of challenges. We see that, you know, time and time again. We're still seeing stats that tell us women aren't making it to the senior levels in organisation. Companies are trying to make a difference. But do you think we need to start much earlier? Do you think we need to start at schools, to start to tell kids at schools, girls at schools, that look, you can be who you want to be, and those careers that you've never thought about are careers that are open to you? Do you think that we fail at the school system to do enough?
Yeah, and let me say to you that we I'm seeing a lot of work being done at the college level, and I would submit that's too late. I really want to see us reaching those high schools again in those underserved areas, because what I see is some very smart young women in those underserved areas. But because they've had nobody who has gone before them, nobody is showing them the art of possible, or the things that they could do, that we need to be reaching in there, because we would be role models to them. They're not thinking about coming into the city and being in a corporate building and working in corporate, because they don't see that. They're thinking about a $12 an hour job, because that's what they see. And so bringing those people, we would take busloads of them and bring them in the city, and some of these fantastic companies here who would allow those young girls to come in. And let me also say to you is that going back to the point of teaching these young women to support each other, I would say that when you have women, and you're right, women, doesn't matter what the color or whatever, other women, I want to say, when you see a woman who is at a senior position, you help that person. If you're on their team, make them look good. Help them, because it's going to do nothing but help you. And that's what we want to teach. Get this mean girl stuff out of here, but start to be really supportive of each other at the young level. We were, when I was working with women in technology, we were having this competition for the girls to come up with, I think the website and to design t-shirts and stuff. And one thing today, young people work very well by themselves because they're always on their cell phones. And so they're working. And so I said, the issue that we have in corporate America is the ability to collaborate, the ability to work together. And so we said, let's force the girls to get in a team. You select your own team and work together. Someone has to be the leader. And the rest of the team has to support that leader. And so when you start to do that at the young age, as I said, middle school, high school, it helps people say, it's all right if I help you. There's nothing going to be taken away from me. By the way, I'm going to learn, because at the end of the day, this is all about leadership. I can lead from the front, and I can lead from the behind. Listen, I believe that the best leaders are those who have to lead people that don't report directly to them. So when you can influence other people because they want to emulate what you do, they catch the vision, they want to do better. I think that that's the best and the most magnificent leader, is to have people following you that don't have to.
So that's a really interesting concept. It's about being a leader without actually having necessarily the authority to be a leader, right? It's about inspiration. It's about capturing somebody's imagination. Is that how you see it?
I absolutely see it that way. If you've got a vision and you're able to articulate that vision, and people see that you are really passionate about what you want to do, and it's for the good, right? Moving the team forward, people are going to want to lead. They don't care what team it's on that you're on, right? And nowadays we're seeing those lines of direct report and all this business, because these young people, they don't do what you say, what you tell them to do. They do what they believe is the right, the right thing.
A different way of working.
Absolutely have a different way. So you got to be able to capture them and to take and motivate them to want to move forward. And how do you do that without, back in my day, it's like you did whatever your boss said as soon as your boss said it, and you better hurry up and jump to it, right? But nowadays, that's not the case. You've really got to convince these people it's the right thing to do, and motivating. And then they want to know, what's in it for me, right? Well, how is this going to benefit? And if you can help and direct them that way, the sky is the limit for all of these, for these young people.
So look, you made a tremendous contribution when you were at Women in Technology. You grew the organization, you grew the number of programs, you grew the number of companies that were investing in that. You created that free program for young people to come and actually see what technology careers were about. And now you've taken all of that capability and all of that passion that you've got, and you're bringing it to Leadercast. Tell me how you are helping companies today to recognize the importance about following leaders that you want to follow. I find that a really interesting concept.
So it is, when I did my work in corporate for all of those many years, I was, even if I go back to elementary school, I was always telling the kids, okay, let's put our lunches together and do something, right? And so some people would call that bossy. All right. I call that.
I can understand that. I can relate to it as well. Right. I think I might have been doing that.
Right? But it really was about trying to accomplish something. And so what I have learned over time is leaders. And again, it's leaders worth following. So I was leading. I wasn't being bossy. I was leading. And we ought to enhance and embrace that. I feel that my past, to your point, has really prepared me to be in this role, which is leading the resource development for corporate sponsorship, because we definitely need to bring in our corporations this whole notion of leadership. Now, you know, every company has wonderful training and development, but I have to tell you what Leadercast brings is this. You're not going to find another organization that has as much diversity of speakers. Our roster and our library of all the leaders that we have and what kind of wisdom they impart about leadership, there's something there for everybody. Nobody else is doing that. And then we culminate all of that by having two big events. One, Leadercast Live, which is in May. Next year, it'll be May 7th. And then we have Leadercast Women coming up October 18th at the Cobb Energy Center. We're going to bring over 2,000 women together. First of all, the lineup, again, as I said earlier, is fantastic. But what we also know is women learn from each other, just being in the room together, right? Having the time that we can network with each other. And so it's important to me that people understand that you can be a leader. A little girl in the Girl Scouts can be a leader. She is a leader. And so for all of us to understand that we are leaders and that people will follow us, we have to have lots of content, of information that we understand how to be. And when I say that I've been prepared for this job, I know what not to do when I've seen bad leaders, when I haven't made the right decisions myself, and how we want to. And I really want to impart that on people. And people don't learn in the traditional way. So what Leadercast has to offer is not only those two programs, and by the way, we do it around the world. So if people want to, and if they can't be at our event at that day, we have what we call FlexCast, and you can purchase that and show it at any time around the world. Because what needs to happen is we all need to be singing off the same page in the hymn book. We all need to know, here's what we're really wanting to have our leaders be. And all of us are leaders, right? In some shape, form, or fashion.
Well, I think you hit like over 100,000 people on this like one day event. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's just like, you know, mind blowing.
And nobody's doing that.
To be able to reach that. But you must have something that is really attracting them.
Because we're passionate about wanting to fill the world with great leaders. It's absolutely critical. We also have Leadercast Now. So it's like professional development on demand. So you could at any time in our library, we have over 150 speakers, look for something that is inspiring to you. Let me tell you, sometimes I'm sitting and I am able to look at some of the speakers for the on demand. It is so inspiring, and I learned something. And then the fun of it is being able to apply it. And then we have certifications in leadership, so people can get certified in leadership excellence and in innovation. We are also looking to take this into the universities. So one of the things that Leadercast has is what we have is host sites. So they're in some of the rural areas where they won't be able to bring all these people in. So we bring it to them. And in addition to that, we want to partner with the universities because, again, we want to bring those young people in so that they too can have this rich content that they can take with them everywhere they go. And we've been going and talking to universities about this. So this is like the most exciting job I've had because I'm like a big thinker. I just want big things to happen.
Well, I'm sitting here being like, inspired by what you're saying. And I'm thinking that actually, like, you guys have really tapped into a market that hasn't actually been tapped before. The fact that you want to go into universities and work with, the universities to help people to understand what they can learn around leadership way before they leave university to get a job. I think that's really interesting because there's loads of stuff that you can get at senior levels. Some of it good, some of it not so good. I think if you're listening, listeners, go look at the Leadercast stuff because it is really good. So I would encourage you to do that. But very few are really focusing at that time when they're in university.
Yes.
Or they're focusing it right at the end when somebody's looking for a job. So that I think is really important if it gets traction around that. And are you seeing universities responding positively?
Yes,
to that?
absolutely. As a matter of fact, my my colleague Adam and I are going to go to a university tomorrow, and they're very excited about it. We're doing a lot of good work with Kennesaw State, for example, is one of them. But we are talking to these universities, and I'll tell you the ones that all of them want them. But I look at these technical schools as well, and all of the schools where you're learning the technical stuff. But baby, what you learn in corporate, I learned on the job. Right? You're stumbling and falling, and nobody's telling you. And by the way, they're looking because they know you're getting ready to fall in that hole right there.
Those mistakes that we made, they were the best ones, right? We learned so much.
Right. But I tell you, you don't have to make those same mistakes. First of all, we got to have this leadership as early as possible because things are changing in a nanosecond. You got to be on your game, and you have to be ready for managing and leading. And I don't want to say managing, I want to say leading everybody. This is the first time in our history that we have 5 different generations in the workforce at the same time. You don't operate with all of those the same. So I would say that the job of leading is even more challenging because you got to appeal to so many different people. But it's all good because I believe every generation can help the next. It's just a matter of us working. So yes, it's important. It's been very well received. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about the fact we go on these host sites, we go to those chambers, and we're also pulling in and talking to as early as the high schools. How do we help those folks? Because it's really all about community. What can we do together? Because we got to be able to move quickly. At the end of the day, how are we being effective? How are we creating good products, making good sales, and just being good citizens of the world?
So let's talk a little bit more about that in particular. Your ethos has always been about servant leadership. I'm a big believer in servant leadership. I think it's evolved over the years. And I think if ever there was a time in the world today that we needed servant leadership, it's now.
Right.
When we see what's happening around the world, just how things are changing, whether that's, political events or economic events or just changes full stop. Servant leadership is something that's going to drive us forward. What is servant leadership to you?
So it is all about not me wanting to get something from you, but it's about what I can do for you and help you. And I work with an organization, CEO NetWeavers, and I was just on the phone. I think I told you I made a wrong turn because I was on the phone with one of our CEOs and we were talking. And before he got off the phone, he says, "What can I do for you? What help do you need?" If we can just stop trying to take and start saying, how can I help you? What can I do to help you? It really doesn't take that much time. So it's really about how can I help serve you, is what servant leadership is about, and what people are doing to make the world better.
It's really interesting. When I offer that to people, sometimes they look at me as though I've got 3 heads or something, or I've got something stuck in my teeth, right?
It, right?
And yet people just feel very, it's almost like a surprise. And yet for me, it seems like, well, you've given up some of your time. So how can I help? Is something that comes naturally, but it isn't something that comes naturally. How are you helping sort of CEOs to sort of understand that? Because they play such an important role in servant leadership, right? About giving back as much as they have to lead. And by the way, they've got a lot on their plates, right? Whether you're a CEO of a small company like myself or a massive, multinational company, you know what it's like. How do you help them think about servant leadership and not being like just a theory, but this idea about ask what you can do to help?
Yeah, it's, a lot of this is really about practice, right? And about helping them. Again, it's back to people telling their stories. At the end of the day, the people I run into really do want to help. They just don't know how. And it's because we're in a fast pace. Everybody's trying to, okay, we're here for a particular reason. Let's get it done. Da, da, da. We are trying to help people understand that it's okay to ask, what can you do? And it's not going to be one other thing on your plate, because most of the time it is, can you make an introduction to whoever? And the connection of that takes a nanosecond to do. And so we're teaching people by doing. We are showing them how you can make this very easy, and it's a win-win for you. these corporations, CEOs, they understand the importance of helping each other. They understand the importance of the bottom line. So usually it's just not a big deal. Their problem is it's time to do it. And if we can show them that it's easy to do, to just make a phone call, send an email, they then find, well, it's not that hard. And then they just start doing it. And then just by saying to them the consciousness, I always ask people, what can I do to help you?
What would you advise sort of young leaders today, young women leaders today, or women that are in roles where they have an influence? How would you advise them to sort of reach out to other women beyond maybe their own organizations or their own networks? What would be your advice to them, do you think?
I think that we're in this world where we just try to pack a whole bunch of stuff in, and we look at it as the more we can do, the better we are. But if we could just take the time to watch, look and listen, search out people that may not be able to or have the ability to get to a C-suite or see anybody in a C-suite, reach out to these young people. When I was in corporate, went back in the day where they had the mail room, if you will, I remember going there and talking to not only the women, but the men, because they weren't expecting to see somebody at a VP level, but I knew there was a need. So if you sit back and think about it, you gotta have a passion for it. You gotta want to do it. But I would advise people to just take a few minutes out of your day and think about, who could I help today? If I could just help one person today, and make that your mantra, that you're going to look as how many people can you help, from the people who are serving you food, from the people who are cleaning up. What can you do? And people who are on your team, because it sometimes is a matter of just going over to somebody and saying, hello, how is your day? Doesn't cost you anything. You can do it on the way to the bathroom, right?
They're surprised sometimes. They're like, somebody spoke to me, right?
Yeah. And people will respond so very positively, because the thing that people need to know is the people that you think are the least might be the people who are the most for you.
Say that. So describe that again. That's a really interesting point. So like, give me an example of what that looks like.
The least of them, right?
Yeah.
So the people that you don't think that can help you, right? Maybe that is the cleaning person. Yeah. All right. Maybe that is the cafeteria. Maybe it's the lowest person on your staff.
They're often the most connected.
They're absolute. Let me tell you something. When I worked at the bank in Chicago, I got the best meals, and people would say, well, how did you do that? It's just being kind. Yeah. And they would always look out for me. They know I'm a potato eater. And so they would make sure that they would have that for us, so they can do the most for you. Or maybe they clean your office just a little bit better, your desk a little bit better. But they also are so connected, to your point, that there are people and connections that have nothing to do with what you're doing, that they can help you.
And isn't it also about respect? Don't you think that sometimes when the higher up we get, the less we remember what it was like lower down the organization? So how do we help leaders sort of not forget the path where they came from? I'm a big believer, like never forget your roots, never forget where you came from, never forget like some of the values that you have learned along the way. But it is interesting that you do see when people rise to power, that they lose that perspective. What can we do to help leaders to make sure they don't lose that perspective? Is it just simply calling it out? Is it making it part of some of the leadership training or development or coaching that we give to them? How can we help?
I think it's all of the above. But again, I'm going to go back to, you got to want to do it. You got to understand that it is to your benefit to do it, because along the way, you never know who you might have to count on. And it could be something completely outside of work. And so it's important. I would always make it a habit. And I would say this to everybody. When I get too comfortable, I make sure I get uncomfortable. So I'm going to go and reach out and do something. So maybe you're coming through the cafeteria and we grab and go. Maybe you can sit down and talk to somebody. Go to talk to people that you ordinarily would not talk to. Get to see and meet and talk to people. But be intentional that this is all about creating better leaders. And so they see you as a leader, and they see you as approachable. The best leaders are the ones that people that are approachable, because by the way, the employees are going to tell you everything that's going on, and they're going to watch your back. And so it's important that people get uncomfortable and go and seek out people that you ordinarily, but you got to want to do it. And you say, oh, I don't have time. You can make time. because this is probably the most important work you're going to do. One of the people that I watched as I was coming through corporate America was Jamie Dimon. He was our CEO. And Jamie, and I got a chance to work with him. The one thing that Jamie would do, he would go and visit your organization, and you didn't even know he was visiting, right? And Jamie he would go in the mailroom. He would manage by walking around and talking to people. That is some of the best information you're going to get. And so when you get to understand people and then put that all together with making connection, listen, if people we had some people in one of my groups, and they wanted one of the girls wanted to, I don't know, she wanted to be in a different group. While she was sitting there, picked up the phone and called the leader of that group. I got somebody, I was going to lose this person, good worker, but I'm going to help that person, right? At the end of the day, that person went up the ladder and was able to help my organization. So always look at it as, if I help you, I'm going to get some help myself. I'm going to move up a few notches in what I want to do, because it's just all about the community. It's just all about the ecosystem.
And I guess what you're really, in a nutshell, what you're saying is people talk about being time poor today, and they don't have enough time to be able to do everything that they want. So being time poor means like prioritize the things that are important, prioritize the things that will really make a difference, not only to yourself, but to the greater good, to the greater purpose that's out there.
The one thing that, the world has changed a lot. We got a lot of technology and all kinds of things have gone away. The one thing isn't going to go away, and that is just being good to people. That is not going to go away. So it's absolutely important that you really take the time to be, and that's what good leaders do.
I'm smiling as you say that, because it just hits you in the face when you say that, and you go like, do you know what? That's so true. And nobody actually has said that before that I've heard. So it's such a powerful statement that I think, I really hope that listeners, felt the same reaction as I did when I heard you say that.
Good.
I do want to talk a little bit about we get really excited when we see a woman become a CEO, right? It's all over every newspaper. People go like, whoa, yay, look, we've got a woman as a CEO. I get really frustrated because I'm like, great, that's great that they made it as a CEO, and I'm glad that we're showcasing it. But shouldn't we also be doing more to showcase those women that are already like at those levels underneath? Because it feels a bit like tokenism to me. So how can we help sort of get more, I guess, visibility, publicity around women that are doing good, to your point, women that are helping other women? I'm very proud that we do have women CEOs. I'm really proud of that fact, and that they come from different backgrounds and they're very diverse. But I would just love to see the newspapers and the media really focusing on like other people that are doing things to actually move that forward.
Yeah, I really think that it's really about the promotion that we do for each other, right? And so when people are doing good, CEOs and stuff, because you're right, there are a number of CEOs we never even hear from. And God bless those women, because they don't a lot of them are not trying to get out and say, hey, I'm the CEO. They're just heads down, just doing good.
Is that a problem though? Are we just sort of like shy about being out there as a woman
I don't
CEO?
think so much that it's shy about it, but I do agree with you that we do need to promote that more, is to say, and this is why our Leadercast women is to showcase it. When one of the things we're doing besides Leadercast Live and Leadercast Women is that we have on a monthly basis these Evolve sessions where we invite people for free to come and hear some of the great speakers that we have. Some of those you're going to be one of our speakers, CEOs that other women can see and promote. And it's by them knowing that. And look, what's the best way? They used to say telephone, tell a woman. It's social media now, right? Yep. It is by getting out there and having social media. I love it. I didn't initially embrace it. I'm of that generation, but I am out there and I am seeing how people are responding. So we can promote these CEOs and what they're doing. And when I look at my network, every day I'm looking on there and there's something that women are doing, and we need to applaud that. We need to support that so others can see it, share it. Let other people see it.
It's an interesting sort of perspective, because actually I was lucky enough to interview on a podcast a young woman from the UK who actually has gone out and sort of published a list about women to sort of watch and admire. I'm humbled to be on it, but it was the fact that here she is, this young woman, and she's gone out and she's just literally looked at people that she has connected to. So it's really sort of almost personifying exactly what you've talked about on this podcast, and said, you know, please, please, please consider these women. If you need something, go talk to them. If you think that they can help, go talk to them. Like, they will be out there to help you. And I, you know, you've just personified that in sort of saying that's exactly what we need to do. And so there are some women that are doing that. I guess social media is a massive way for us to do it, and we need to find ways
absolutely
to encourage that more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that having, and I will tell you, and I do want to say this, it is a joy for me to work with Leadercast. Angela Robb is one of the most authentic CEOs you're going to find. When I tell you she absolutely cares, and she shocks me. She called me the other day because she knows I'm taking care of my elderly people, just to see how I'm doing. Again, that's about people. When you care about people, people notice. And so having her as a role model of good CEOs, you're absolutely right. I think that we just need to promote that more, let people know what these women are doing, and have these women come and talk about what they do as good leaders.
And that's really interesting that she rang you to ask you about that, because actually your conference, Leadercast conference, that one day massive inspirational event, was all about healthy teams, right? And she was concerned, and healthy teams means the whole thing, right?
Yes.
Being, but like, you know, physically healthy, mentally healthy in a work-life balance, the whole gambit of what that means. So I guess that really does personify what she did. So one last question before we close out.
Sure.
Like, we spent a lot of time talking about women, but we do have men that listen to the podcast too.
Yes, and I love them.
And I love them too. You know, because they are an absolutely integral part. This is not, I always say it, and it sounds like a mantra, but this is not a woman's issue. It's not a man's issue. It's not a company issue. It's everybody's issue to solve. So what advice have you got for our dear, dear men who are listening to this that have actually a very influential role to play as well? Because I don't want them to miss out.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I will tell you that men have been an extremely huge part of my career. My mentor, Don Hollis, Chris Scar, Stan Dietzel, these are guys who I've known for years. And I will tell you, if it were not for them, I mean, they would slap me in the corner when I needed it, and then they would encourage me and hug me and do all those things because they cared. I would say to men, show people that you care. Support these women, because you don't have to do it. It's good business. And I think that it's important. And I will tell you that as I see some of the young men, I'm working with Adam Penaflora, and you talking about a young man he's somebody to watch, because I watch how he reacts to, he's my partner. I told him, look, now, we partners in crime here. And so he is got just such a wonderful, respectful. And I think that's important, that men respect women and let them know that you really genuinely care about their issues, and then show them, be an ally, be an advocate, make sure that you are inclusive when you're talking about, and correct those men who are not. Don't have to do it publicly, but hey, it's all right to say, well, that just wasn't cool because this is what you don't want to do. And if we do that, I don't think people, necessarily say, I just want to be mean today. I just think that people just fall into this zone. But I would encourage men to keep on being respectful and keep on supporting women.
Well, I think that's a great answer to sort of end the show on. Pat, every time I do a podcast, I learn something new. I get inspired by something. Today I'm blown away by all of the tips that you have given, made me sort of reflect on what I can do going forward today and continue to do. And if people want to find out more about Leadercast, more about some of the other non-profits that you help, and more about you, how do they do that? How can they connect with you? Websites, LinkedIn, Twitter?
I'm on all of that.
So do you want to give out some of the, you can really get me at leadercast.com. So it's Pat.Hurston, Hurston,
at leadercast.com. And I'd be more than happy to talk to any of your listeners.
Great. Thank you very much, Pat. And if you want to find out about me, you can look up the website, www.dareworldwide.com. If you want to find out about my book, it's just the second edition's just been released. It talks about a lot of the things that we've talked about today. So look out for the second edition of Unleashing Capacity. And of course, you can listen to this podcast, Daring To. Don't miss out. It's a great podcast. And thank you very much, Pat.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Enjoyed the conversation? Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of Daring To. Also, check out our website, dareworldwide.com, for some great resources around business in general, leadership, and how to bring about change. See you next time.